Hello, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Good morning. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Good morning, sir.
Morning, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Okay, around how many of you were present in the first class? Just in anatomy class?
$85.
85. That means some are still coming, yes? Just 71. Okay. I think now we can continue our classes, yes? Others will keep joining. We'll continue our classes. If you have some questions, you can ask at the last, or you can just write in the messages too. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Is there any problem, or you can clearly hear me?
Clearly.
Okay, now we'll start. Okay, in the first class we discussed about carbohydrates classification function. Now we'll be going to monosaccharides. We'll be discussing about different aspects of monosaccharides. Now we'll start with our slides. First of all, we'll discuss about the asymmetric carbon. You might have heard the word earlier also. Asymmetric means without symmetry. A carbon atom to which 4 different groups or atoms are attached. Here you can see the example. This is the carbon, and carbon has 4 valence, you all know, and the 4 valences different groups are attached. That means this carbon is a symmetric carbon. To know about the properties, we have to know about the symmetric and asymmetric carbon. Asymmetric carbon is the one in which 4 different constituents are added. You can see the slides, yes? Can you see
Yes,
the
sir.
slide? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now stereoisomers, compound having the same structural formula but differing in special configuration are known as stereoisomers. And regarding these stereoisomers, we have just discussed about the asymmetric carbons. And we can calculate about the number of isomers with the help of asymmetric carbon. Asymmetric carbon means the carbon which is attached to different constituent. Now if you see here, this is the example of glyceraldehyde. These tabs are disturbing you to see the slides? These small icons? Okay,
No, sir.
Okay. Now you can see this is L-glyceraldehyde. This is the simplest carbohydrate with 3 carbons, glyceraldehyde. This we call it as L-glyceraldehyde. This is D-glyceraldehyde. L and D because how many chiral centers can you see in this glyceraldehyde molecule? We have just discussed about the chiral center, isn't it?
1.
Chiral carbon or asymmetric carbon, chiral carbon. It is the same which we have just discussed. Yes. Asymmetric carbon or the chiral carbon, they are the same. Okay. In this glyceraldehyde, how many chiral carbon do you see? Any chiral carbons are 1. Okay. This is the second one is the chiral carbon. That means it is joined with 4 different constituents. just like this case CH2OH, in other side OH, in this side EH, and in this group CH group. That means this is chiral center. This is chiral center means this has the isomers, optical isomers are there. How many optical isomers we can find? We can use the simple formula 2 to the power n. How many chiral centers are here? One chiral center. 2 to the power 1 means 1. 2 to the power 1 means 2 into 1. That means two isomers we can find. And you can also see here, this is glyceraldehyde. Both are glyceraldehyde. Here L glyceraldehyde is written. This L and D are written with respect to the last chiral carbon. But here the last and the first is the same chiral carbon. This one in terms of chirality, this is the last chiral carbon, and in this case OH is on the right side. That's why it is designated as D, and in this case OH is on the left side. That's why this is designated as L. This is L glyceraldehyde. This is D glyceraldehyde. We will move further. Okay. D and L isomers are mirror images of each other. We can see L glucose and D glucose here. And this is the L glucose, this is D glucose. The naming L and D is given based on the position of this functional group OH on the last chiral carbon. Okay, how many chiral carbons do you see in this glucose molecule?
4.
4, yes. Okay.
4.
2, 3, 4, 5, isn't it? Number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. That's 4 chiral carbons are present here. And in this last chiral carbon, OH is on the left side. That's why such molecules are designated as L. And in this case, the last chiral carbon, the OH is on the right side. That means this is D. This is L glucose. This is D glucose. And L and D glucose are mirror images of each other. If we place a mirror here, that means this L glucose is just the mirror image of D glucose and vice versa. Now we'll go to optical activity. The presence of asymmetric carbon or the chiral carbon atoms causes optical activity. Then what do you understand by optical activity? When a beam of plain polarized light is passed through the solution of carbohydrates, it will rotate the light either to the left or to the right. This is the optical activity. Depending upon the rotation, molecules are named as dextrorotatory or levorotatory. Dextrorotatory means which rotates the light to the right, levorotatory which rotates the light to the left. And we have earlier seen that D glucose and L glucose. That D and L, which was the capital D and capital L, it was assigned based on the configuration of the functional group, that is the OH, and the last last asymmetric carbon, that is the last chiral carbon. Or we can easily understand by saying in the penultimate carbon, that second last carbon, that was the chiral carbon, which was the last chiral carbon. Based on that, D and L was assigned. But here this D and L, these are the small d and small l, or with plus and minus sign. That means we assign the optical activity with the help of small d or small l, or with the help of plus and minus. That capital D and capital L, which was used, is based on the configuration on the last chiral carbon, that is the functional group either present on the left or present on the right. Okay, this we can see with the help of diagram also. This is the unpolarized light. If we pass this unpolarized light, that is the multi-dimensional light, to the polarimeter, only the radiation of only one direction, that means the plane, how the light is polarized, only one plane is passed through the solution of carbohydrate, and when that light passes across this source, now it will be deviated to some degrees, either to the left or to the right. This is what we say about the levorotatory or the dextrorotatory. Now the racemic mixture. When equal amounts of dextrorotatory and levorotatory isomers are present, there will be no resulting activity. That means in the solution of carbohydrate, if equal number of D and equal number of L isomers are present, then the resulting solution will not deviate the light, neither to the right nor to the left. Such a mixture is known as racemic mixture. Now we'll see about the epimers. We are talking about the isomers, stereoisomers, chiral center. Now we are coming to the epimers. When sugars are different from one another only in configuration with respect to single carbon atom, that single carbon atom should be other than the anomeric carbon, then in this case they are known as the epimers. Now let's see, this is this is the structure of glucose. As we have already discussed briefly, configuration can be written in Howard form, Fischer projection, and for simplicity, Howard form also with making all the lines equal. Now here we can see this Howard projection. Now this is the molecule of glucose. We'll discuss about what is alpha and what is beta later on. Now this is the glucose molecule. All these are D forms. You can see D-galactose, D-glucose, D-mannose. Okay, this is this molecule in the center. This is the glucose molecule. Now, if we compare the structure of this glucose molecule with this mannose molecule, what difference do you find? Any difference is there or not? Yes, there is difference in the configuration of second carbon. Yes, just in the second carbon. In this second carbon, this OH group is on the upper side, but here this is on the lower side. Yes, that means in the Fischer projection, this is on the left side, this is on the right side. Otherwise, these two molecules are the same. That means this glucose molecule and mannose molecule, they differ only with respect to second carbon. There's, of course, the molecular formula is the same, but the structure, they are different, isn't it? In the case of structure also, this glucose and mannose, they differ only in the configuration of this second carbon. In this second carbon, here OH is on the upper side, here OH on the lower side. And if you remember the Fischer projection, upper side means on the left side, and this lower side means on the right side. Okay. That means this glucose and mannose, they are C2 epimers. Glucose and mannose, they are C2 epimers. And now, if we compare the molecule of this glucose with the molecule of galactose, these two molecules are same, except at fourth carbon. At fourth carbon, you see OH group pointing downwards, but here OH group is pointing upwards. That means in Fischer projection, this is on the right side, this is on the left side. Otherwise, all the configurations are the same. We're talking about the epimers. When two sugars are different from one another, only in configuration with regard to a single carbon atom. But that single carbon atom has to be other than the anomeric carbon. We'll talk about the anomeric carbon later on. Okay. When sugars are different from one another only in configuration with regard to the single carbon atom, they are called as epimers. Let's forget about this exception other than anomeric. Okay. They are known as epimers. Glucose, galactose, and mannose, they are epimers. That means glucose, galactose, and mannose, if you compare the structure, their structures are same. Of course, their molecular formula are same, no doubt. In terms of structure, all the other configurations are same except around one carbon atom. In the case of glucose and mannose, second carbon. In the case of glucose and galactose, fourth carbon. That's why glucose and mannose, they are C2 epimers, and glucose and galactose, they are C4 epimers. Okay, this alpha we'll talk later on. Okay. Now anomers. While talking about the epimers, we have said that when sugars are different from one another only in configuration with regard to single carbon atom, and that single carbon atom have to be other than the anomeric carbon. Okay. Now we'll talk in regard to anomeric carbon. They are the anomers. Two cyclic compounds, alpha and beta, have different optical rotations, but they will not be the same because the mirror images are not the same. Compounds related in this way are called anomers. Or in simple way, an anomer is a cyclic saccharide and an epimer that differs in configuration at the anomeric carbon. Okay, we'll see the example. Now let's see. Okay, this is alpha D glucose, whereas this is beta D glucose. This alpha and beta forms are known as anomers, because if they were in the Fischer projection form, they will not be isomers. And when this structure is closed, there is the formation of one more chiral center. One more chiral center is formed. That's why there is the presence of epimers. Now in this case, it is anomer. Now we see this is alpha D glucose, this is beta D glucose. This alpha D glucose and beta D glucose. Okay, let's read this line again. An anomer is a cyclic saccharide and an epimer that differs in configuration at the anomeric carbon, only at the anomeric carbon. Let's see here. Okay, in this carbon, this OH is facing downwards, and in this carbon, this OH is facing upward. And in the molecule in which this OH is facing upward, they are known as the beta isoforms. Or in other case, we can easily recognize if this bulky group CH2OH and this OH are on the same side, it is known as the beta beta anomer. Or in the other case, if this bulky group CH2OH and this OH group are in opposite direction, it is known as the alpha isomers. And this alpha and beta, this happens only with the cyclic molecules, because in the acyclic structure of the glucose molecule, there are only 4 chiral centers. One center was added, and it results in alpha and beta form. Now we'll discuss about the mutarotation. Mutarotation, the change in specific optical rotation representing the interconversion of alpha and beta forms of D-glucose to an equilibrium mixture is known as mutarotation. The change in specific optical rotation. There will be a change in specific optical rotation when the glucose powder or glucose crystal is placed in the solvent water solution. Let's see, in crystallized form, glucose is in alpha D glucose, and if we make a solution of glucose in the equilibrium, it will form the equilibrium mixture, and in that equilibrium mixture, no, this is looking how to. This is preventing me to explain. Okay, just a very key. The slide sharing stopped or what happened? Has it stopped?
No, sir.
Not stopped, but many slides are passed. I guess. Okay, well here. Instead of trying to make it the full screen, so the conversation is here. More action. Too much. In this mode is also not good. Okay, okay, we're discussing about the mutarotation. Just leave this. Okay, I couldn't manage this. Okay, we're talking about the mutarotation, and this glucose in the crystalline form, it is in the form of alpha D alpha D glucose, and when we make the solution of this glucose, it will be converted. It will also be converted to the beta form. And if you see, around 63% in the solution is in the beta form, whereas only 36% is in the alpha form. And this equilibrium mixture, the optical rotation will be changed. We're talking about the muta rotation. The change in the specific optical rotation representing the interconversion of alpha and beta forms is known as muta rotation. Because in the powder of glucose or crystal of glucose, it is in the alpha form, but when we make in the solution, it is in the beta form. This alpha form is having the high dextrorotatory rotatory characteristic, but this beta D glucose is having low dextrorotatory, that is just plus 18 degree. That's why this equilibrium mixture will have around 52.7 dextrorotatory character. This is known as muta rotation. That means in glucose powder, it is 112 dextrorotatory. That means 112 degree to the right. But in the equilibrium mixture, it just rotates 52.7. This is due to the conversion of alpha to the beta forms in the solution. If we see the reality, the equilibrium mixture contains 63% of beta form, only 36% of alpha, that is alpha ionomer, and less than 1% in the open chain form, also in the furanose form. This actually glucose, it's almost always in pyranose structure and less than 1% in the case of open chain and furanose ring. That's why the muta rotation, that means there is a change in the optical activity, because this alpha form in the solution, it is getting converted to beta form. As this alpha form and beta form, they have the different optical rotation. Naturally, there will be the change in the optical rotation. This is known as the muta rotation. That means when the glucose is dissolved in the solution, its optical activity will changes, and it changes because alpha form is converted to the beta form. And in the equilibrium mixture, only about 36% will be in the alpha form, and around 63% will be in the beta form. Okay, this is about the muta rotation. Now, structure of glucose, yesterday in earlier class also we have already seen. This is just revise. Mainly in two form. One is the straight chain form, which is known as the Fischer projection, and other is the cyclic structure, which is known as the Haworth projection. And in this cyclic structure also, we make it so simple that all the 6 sides are equal. But in nature, they don't exist as such. There are several conformations. The most important and the most stable configuration is the chair form. Other maybe the boat form, staggered configuration. There are much more conformations, but the most stable one is the chair form. We don't go to the chair form. Now we assume this is the real structure, but actually this is not the real. But for the simplicity, we assume this all the 6 sides equal as a real structure. Now this is the Fischer projection false, and this is the Haworth projection. However, in the Haworth projection also, the glucose molecule does not exist with all the equal sides. Less than 1% in, as we have seen in solution, less than 1% of glucose will remain as such. That means in the straight line form, or like the Fischer projection. However, more than 99% will remain in the cyclic structure. And in this cyclic structure also, most stable is the chair form. Okay. Now we'll go to the reactions of monosaccharides. And in the reactions, we'll study some reactions: enidyl formation, reducing properties. Naturally, reducing properties means oxidation reduction. And we'll also describe little about furfuryl derivatives, Osazone formation, and formation of esters. In your practicals, have you performed the practicals of carbohydrate or not?
No, sir.
No, you have only performed the practicals of protein, yes? Proteins, yes, you have done in your class. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Because these properties are important in the practical classroom also, because we utilize these properties to perform the practicals. Okay, let's see one by one. First one is the enidyl formation. In mild alkaline solutions, carbohydrates containing a free sugar group, aldehyde or keto naturally, will tautomerize to form enediols. We'll see with the help of structure also. That means in mild alkaline solution, they will form enediols. In mild alkaline condition, glucose is converted into fructose or mannose with the intermediate having the enediols. We'll see with the help of this diagram. Okay, now this is the glucose. In mild alkaline condition, there will be the formation of enediol. In the name itself, ene means double bond, di means two, al means alcohol. That means the same carbon having the double bond as well as bonded with the OH group. That is enediol or enediol, whatever you say. The same carbon molecule is having the double bond. Ene means double bond, ene. Di means both thing, and al means alcohol. That means this single carbon having the double bond as well as the alcohol. This was not the case in glucose. But in mild alkaline condition, carbohydrates tautomerize. This is the example of tautomerization. Tautomerize to form enediols. That means with the same carbon having the double bond as well as the OH group, and with the formation of enediol, it can further isomerize to give fructose, or it can also give mannose. You can see here is the double bond, and through the formation of this enediol, it can form fructose as well as it can form mannose. Glucose and fructose, they are isomers. Glucose and mannose, they are epimers. Okay, now enediol formation. And this enediol formation, we have to also study about this characteristic in the reducing property. These enediols are highly reducing agents. That's why they reduce some chemicals. We'll see later on also. Okay. Because of this enediol formation, these monosaccharides, they show the reducing property. We'll see with the other. And this in the reducing properties, to demonstrate the reducing properties, we can perform Benedict test, Fellings test, and Barfoy test. Among these tests, Benedict test and Barfoy test we will be doing in our laboratory too. Benedict test will distinguish between the reducing and the non-reducing carbohydrates, and that reducing carbohydrates will form enediol, and that enediol are highly reducing. That's why they reduce in this Benedict test, and Fellings test will not be doing, and the Barfoy test will be doing to differentiate between the monosaccharides and the disaccharides in our practicals to demonstrate the reducing property. Now let's see this Benedict test. What happens is sugar, as we have said that sugar in mild alkaline conditions, they will form enediols, and these enediols are highly reducing agents. That means they reduce other chemicals while they themselves being oxidized, and this enediol themselves become oxidized to sugar acid, and in that they will reduce cupric ions to cuprous ions, and it gives the yellow color and eventually to red color. This practical will be performing. The name is the Benedict test, and this Benedict test is given by carbohydrates which are reducing, because those reducing carbohydrates will form enediols in mild alkaline condition, and if the enediol is formed, this reaction will occur and we'll see the change in color. Now next is the oxidation of sugars. In mild oxidation conditions, aldehyde group is oxidized to carboxylic group. For example, glucose is oxidized to gluconic acid, mannose is oxidized to mannonic acid. That means in mild condition, they can be oxidized. This is not the new thing. Okay. When aldehyde group is protected, that means when that functional group is protected and the molecule is oxidized, the last carbon becomes the COH group. That means when the first carbon, that is the, in the case of glucose, CHO group is just protected with the help of some modification. In that case, last carbon will be oxidized, and this is known as glucuronic acid. In the case of mannose, mannurinic acid, and the same in the others also. Okay. Oxidation of aldo group of sugar produces aldonic acid. Example, oxidation of glucose produces gluconic acid. That means if the first carbon is oxidized, we call it as gluconic acid. In the case of glucose, oxidation of terminal alcohol group, that is the way terminal alcohol group produces glucuronic acid, or the general name is uronic acid. Why we have been focusing this is later on while studying about the polysaccharides, we have to study about the uronic acids. And to know what uronic acid is, uronic acid is the oxidation it produced after the oxidation of the last carbon. If the first carbon is oxidized, this is aldonic acid, and in the case of glucose, gluconic acid. And if the last carbon is oxidized, this is uronic acid, and in the case of glucose, this is glucuronic acid. And these uronic acids are the components of mucopolysaccharides. They are the polysaccharides and required for detoxification also. Just like we will see about the different bilirubin metabolism, bilirubin has to be conjugated in our body, and in the process of conjugation, these uronic acids are useful. Ketones are not easily oxidized as aldoses. And vitamins like ascorbic acid, vitamin C is also a sugar acid. We have said that it is the derivative of carbohydrate. What type of derivative is last carbon is oxidized, that is the sugar acid. Okay, now this structure you have to remember. If you remember this structure, you will not be confused with the names also. In this case, this is the glucose molecule, except in this case, first carbon, that is the aldehyde group, is oxidized to carboxylic group, COH, as you can see. And here in this case, this first group is not oxidized, but the last group is oxidized. If the first group is oxidized, they are known as aldonic acid, and if the last carbon is oxidized, they are known as uronic acid. And this is the specific case of glucose. That's why this is D-gluconic acid, and this is D-glucuronic acid. Just see the difference. You have to remember this, especially for practicals, and to write the principles in the practicals, and to distinguish between gluconic and glucuronic acid, you have to find the difference. Gluconic means first carbon is oxidized. Glucuronic means last carbon is oxidized to COH group. Now others. On the strong oxidation conditions, in the conditions of nitric acid and heat, no need to remember about the chemicals here, but you have to know first and last both carbons are oxidized and forming dicarboxylic acids, and these are known as saccharic acids. Glucose is oxidized to glucose saccharic acid, mannose to mannoric acid. That means in strong oxidation conditions, both the first carbon and the last carbon are oxidized, and they are known as the saccharic acids. Only this much. In the case of glucose, if first carbon is oxidized, gluconic acid. If only last carbon is oxidized, glucuronic acid. If both the first and the last carbon are oxidized, then it is known as glucose saccharic acid. Now let's see the reduction to form alcohols. Reduction of aldoses and ketose groups of sugar produces sugar alcohols known as polyols. Now let's see, glucose molecule is reduced to sorbitol. D-glucose is reduced to D-sorbitol. As you can see here, this aldehyde group is reduced to alcohol. When this aldehyde group is reduced to alcohol, now this molecule is known as sorbitol. In the case of glucose, this is sorbitol. Okay. Galactose dulcitol. That means reduction to form alcohols. Now next property is the property for the formation of furfuryl derivatives. Monosaccharides, when treated with conc sulfuric acid, undergo dehydration with the removal of 3 water molecules. All the monosaccharides, when treated with conc sulfuric acid, undergo dehydration with the removal of 3 water molecules. This, in the case of hexoses, they give hydroxymethyl furfuryl, pentoses give furfuryl. And these furfuryls contains with phenolic compounds to form colored products. That is why this property is exploited to form the general test for carbohydrates. General test for carbohydrates is the Mollis test, and in the Mollis test, this property is exploited, or this property is used. Formation of furfuryl derivatives. Now you can see glucose resulting in hydroxymethyl furfuryl and ribose resulting in the formation of furfuryl. That means hexoses will form hydroxymethyl hydroxymethyl furfuryl, but the pentages will form furfuryl derivatives. But in both of the cases, these furfuryl derivatives will condense with phenolic compounds to form the color products. And this characteristics is applied for the general test for carbohydrates. Later on, we'll be doing in our practicals too. This is the Mollis test. This is the principle of the Mollis test. Regarding the practicals, we have studied about the Mollis test, general test for carbohydrates, and other one is the test for the reducing sugar, that is the Benedict test, and the other reducing property Barford test is to distinguish between disaccharide and monosaccharide. This test will be performed in the practicals. Okay, again there is the other test, other property of the carbohydrates, which will also perform the practicals in our class later on when our college class is resumed. All reducing sugars will form oxazone with excess of phenyl hydrogen when kept as boiling temperature, and these oxazones are insoluble. And insoluble means they form crystals, and different carbohydrates, the crystals are different shaped. And it is important to distinguish between the different carbohydrates given to you in solution. When different carbohydrates are given to you, you can identify with the help of this test also. That means reducing carbohydrates. All reducing sugars will form oxazone when excess of phenyl hydrogen when kept as boiling temperature. They form the oxazones, and the oxazone of different reducing sugars, for example, glucose, maltose, lactose, they have the different shapes, and based on the different shapes, we can identify which type of carbohydrate is given to us. All reducing sugars will form oxazones when excess of phenyl hydrogen is kept at boiling temperature. Now let's see. These are the examples of oxazones of different reducing carbohydrates. This is glucosazone. You can see the needle-shaped crystals. By that experiments, if needle-shaped, we perform the experiments, and after performing the experiment, crystals okay. We're talking about the oxazone formation. Different reducing sugars will form oxazones with excess of phenyl hydrogen. That means when reducing sugars are treated with phenyl hydrogen, oxazones are formed, and these are the insoluble. That means crystals will be formed, and that crystals, when we look under the microscope, we'll find the different shapes, characteristic shape, and based on that characteristic shape, we can identify which sample was given to us. Sorry. Glucose crystals, they will form needle shaped. This is lactose crystals, they will form a hog shaped or cotton ball shaped, and we can see these maltose crystals, they are the sunflower petal shaped crystals. Based on the different crystals, we can identify which sample was which carbohydrate was present in the sample given to us. Okay, this is about the oxazone formation. Now the formation of esters, we all know. Hydroxyl group of sugars can be esterified to form sugar phosphates. We all know this is the sugar. Last phosphate group can be combined. Now next is amino sugars. That means the sugars amino groups can be added. As we can see, alpha D glucosamine. That means in this amino group is added. We are talking about the sugar derivatives, glucosamine. When this one OS group is replaced with amino group, this is known as glucosamine. Okay, not only the amine group can be attached, but this amine group can also be acetylated. As you can see, N-acetyl glucosamine, alpha D N-acetyl glucosamine. As you can see here, okay, just try to understand the full name also. Alpha D glucosamine. This is the D-glucose molecule. Alpha means this bulky group, and the functional group of this first carbon, they are in the opposite plane, not in the same plane. This is alpha configuration, and here you can see alpha D N acetyl glucosamine. That means this acetyl group is attached through nitrogen. That's why N acetyl glucosamine. Okay. Other soft chains can also be added as you can see. N acetyl neuraminic acid, also called sialic acid, is often found as a terminal residue of oligosaccharide chains of glycoproteins. Now, how it is formed is you can see here the R group is this much group is attached here, and acetyl group is attached here, and acetyl neuraminic acid, and this is COS group is here. As the COS group is here, it can easily ionize and give the negative charge to the sialic acids present. Example of this amino sugars, glucosamine, acin. Okay, later on we'll see in the polysaccharides, glucosamine, seen in hyaluronic acid, heparin, blood group substances, galactosamine, mannose-amine, N-acetyl glucosamine and N-acetyl glycosamine. This we can see in different polysaccharides. Deoxy sugars, we all know deoxyribose, and this fucose is also the deoxy sugar. 6-deoxy-L-galactose is the fucose molecule. Deoxy sugar, we all know ribose, deoxyribose. Okay. Now glycosides. When the hemiacetal group, that is the hydroxyl group of anomeric carbon of a monosaccharide, is contained with an alcohol or phenol group, it is called a glycoside, and the non-carbohydrate group is known as a glycon. This is just to know the term. When the hemiacetal group of a monosaccharide is contained with an alcohol or phenol group, it is called as glycosides, and the non-carbohydrate group is called aglycon. Later on, we'll study the formation of disaccharides between the two, with the bond formation between the two monosaccharides unit. That is also the glycosidic bond. In that case, both are the carbohydrates, and they're both the moieties are the carbohydrates. But in other glycosides, what may happen is one is the carbohydrate, and this hemiacetal group, it can combine with the OH group of non-carbohydrates also, and in that case also they are known as the glycosides, and the non-carbohydrate moiety is called a glycon. Okay, important glycosides are streptomycin, auven. These are the examples of important glycosides. Okay, this is all about the monosaccharides. If you have any questions, you can ask one by one or write in the chat box. Okay. Now in the next day, we'll go to the disaccharides. It's all about today's class on monosaccharides. Okay, I'll see if any of you have questions in the chat here.
So,
No question, only present is there. Okay. If you have any questions, you can ask also. You can unmute your mic and you can ask. Okay, one question